Forget everything you thought you knew about flying to the Caribbean. A major shift is underway, spearheaded by Jamaica, promising a new era of seamless regional connectivity and tourism. This could dramatically impact your future travel plans. Don't miss out on understanding why U.S. airlines are feeling the heat. But before we dive into this game-changing story, if you want to stay updated on travel innovations and industry shifts that affect your next vacation, hit that subscribe button. Help us reach 5,000 subscribers and join a community that stays ahead of travel trends. Now, let's uncover what's making major airlines nervous. Picture this. You're planning your dream Caribbean vacation. You open your laptop, search for flights, and what do you see? The same handful of U.S. carriers. The same connection through Miami, Fort Lauderdale, or New York. The same premium prices. For decades, this has been the reality of Caribbean travel. But something is shifting beneath the surface, and it's happening on an island known for its beaches, jerk chicken, and reggae music. Jamaica is quietly orchestrating a transformation that could reshape how millions of travelers reach paradise. The Caribbean has always been one of the most lucrative markets for American airlines. We're talking about a region that welcomes over 30 million tourists annually, with Americans making up the largest chunk of that number. U.S. carriers have built empires on these routes, enjoying comfortable profit margins that most domestic routes can only dream of. Think about it. Limited competition, high demand, captive audiences eager to escape winter or celebrate special occasions. It's been a goldmine. Major U.S. airlines have spent years perfecting their Caribbean networks. They've established fortress hubs in South Florida, creating intricate webs of connections that funnel passengers through their systems. If you want to fly from Chicago to Barbados, you're probably going through Miami, heading from Boston to St. Lucia. That's a connection in Fort Lauderdale. This hub-and-spoke model has been wildly profitable, giving these carriers almost total control over pricing and scheduling. Passengers had little choice but to play by their rules. The brilliance of this system, from an airline perspective, wasn't just about controlling routes. It was about controlling the entire travel experience. They decided when flights departed, how much connections cost, and which islands got service on which days. Some smaller Caribbean destinations only saw flights a few times per week, not because of lack of demand, but because the system was optimized for airline efficiency, not passenger convenience. And travelers, they accepted it because there simply weren't alternatives. But here's where the story gets interesting. Over the past few years, industry insiders have started noticing something unusual in quarterly earnings reports and aviation data. Nothing dramatic, nothing that made headlines, but subtle indicators that the Caribbean game was changing. Load factors on certain routes began showing unexpected fluctuations. Pricing power on specific corridors started weakening. And perhaps most tellingly, corporate strategy presentations began mentioning increased regional competition more frequently than before. Jamaica has been watching, learning, and planning. This island nation of just under 3 million people has ambitions that extend far beyond its size. The Jamaican government and aviation authorities have recognized something that U.S. airlines have long known, but hoped would remain unchanged. Whoever controls the airports controls the region. And right now, Jamaica is positioning itself to become the undisputed aviation hub of the Caribbean. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is Jamaica doing that has seasoned airline executives in boardrooms across America paying closer attention? It starts with infrastructure, but it goes so much deeper than just building bigger terminals or adding more gates. Jamaica is reimagining what a Caribbean airport can be, not just as a destination, but as a connector, a facilitator, a catalyst for an entirely new model of regional travel. Let's talk about capacity first. Jamaican airports have been undergoing systematic expansions designed to handle significantly increased passenger volumes. We're not talking about modest improvements. These are substantial infrastructure investments aimed at doubling, even tripling, the ability to process travelers efficiently. New terminal buildings, expanded customs and immigration facilities, upgraded baggage handling systems, and enhanced aircraft parking capabilities. Every element is being designed with one goal in mind: making Jamaica the easiest, most efficient entry point into the Caribbean. But infrastructure alone doesn't create a hub. You need connectivity, and this is where Jamaica's strategy becomes truly disruptive. The island has been actively courting regional carriers and international airlines, offering incentives and creating favorable operating conditions that make Jamaica an attractive base for Caribbean operations. The message is clear: use Jamaica as your gateway and we'll make it worth your while. Lower landing fees for airlines that establish connecting service. Streamlined customs procedures for passengers in transit. Marketing partnerships that promote Jamaica as the starting point for multi-destination Caribbean adventures. Think about what this means for a traveler. Instead of flying from New York to Miami, then Miami to St. Vincent, you could fly directly to Jamaica and catch a quick regional flight to St. Vincent, possibly at a lower total cost and with less total travel time. For cruise passengers, Jamaica becomes the ideal fly cruise hub, where you can easily reach multiple embarkation ports. For island hoppers wanting to experience several Caribbean destinations in one trip, Jamaica transforms from just another stop into the essential starting point. The economic implications are staggering. Tourism is the lifeblood of Caribbean economies, and the nation that controls tourist flow wields enormous influence. Jamaica isn't just thinking about capturing more visitors for itself, though that's certainly part of the plan. They're thinking about becoming the distributor of tourists throughout the region. Every passenger that connects through Jamaica represents revenue, jobs, and economic activity, even if Jamaica isn't their final destination. U.S. airlines have built their Caribbean success on being the mandatory middleman. You want to reach the islands, you go through us. But Jamaica's emerging model threatens to insert a new middleman, or perhaps more accurately, to eliminate the need for the Miami and Fort Lauderdale layovers that have been so profitable for American carriers. If regional connectivity improves to the point where travelers can reach multiple islands easily from Jamaica, the entire routing logic that has sustained U.S. carrier dominance begins to crumble. Let's consider a specific example that illustrates this shift. A family from Philadelphia wants to visit both Jamaica and Grenada on a 2-week Caribbean vacation. Under the current system, they'd likely book separate flights, probably routing through different U.S. hubs, dealing with separate bookings, potentially different airlines, and considerable coordination headaches. Now imagine a future where they fly once to Jamaica, enjoy the first week there, then hop on a seamless regional connection to Grenada for week 2, all coordinated through integrated booking systems that make the entire experience feel like a single journey. That's the vision Jamaica is pursuing. This strategy also opens doors for international carriers beyond the U.S. European airlines, Canadian carriers, and Latin American airlines are all watching Jamaica's transformation with great interest. If Jamaica can establish itself as the Caribbean's premier hub, it becomes attractive for these international carriers to add or increase service to Jamaica, knowing their passengers will have easy onward connections throughout the region. This further dilutes the dominance U.S. carriers have enjoyed, creating a truly competitive marketplace where passengers benefit from more options and better prices. The technology piece of this puzzle cannot be overlooked. Modern aviation hubs succeed not just because of physical infrastructure, but because of digital infrastructure that makes connections seamless. Jamaica has been investing in systems that allow for easier ticket integration between different carriers, smoother baggage transfers, coordinated scheduling that minimizes connection times, and passenger services that make layovers productive or enjoyable rather than frustrating. These might sound like small details, but they're the difference between a hub that works and one that frustrates travelers into choosing alternatives. There's also a sustainability angle that's becoming increasingly important to travelers, especially younger demographics. Multiple short flights and circuitous routing through distant hubs create unnecessary carbon emissions. A more efficient hub system centered in the geographic heart of the Caribbean makes environmental sense. Jamaica has been highlighting this in its positioning, appealing to environmentally conscious travelers who want to minimize their carbon footprint while still enjoying tropical vacations. It's smart marketing that also happens to be true. Now, let's address what this means for pricing, because at the end of the day, cost is often the deciding factor for travelers. U.S. airlines have enjoyed pricing power in Caribbean markets because of limited competition. When you're one of only 2 or 3 carriers serving a particular route, you can charge premium prices, especially during peak season. But increased competition typically leads to lower fares. If Jamaica succeeds in attracting more carriers and creating more routing options, basic economic principles suggest prices will become more competitive. That's great news for travelers, but challenging news for airlines accustomed to healthy profit margins. There's a historical precedent for this kind of market disruption. Think about what happened in the Middle East with Dubai and the rise of Emirates, or how Singapore transformed itself into a global aviation superpower. These weren't the largest countries or the most obvious choices for major hubs, but through strategic planning, significant investment, and smart marketing, they fundamentally altered global aviation patterns. Jamaica is essentially attempting a regional version of this strategy, and the blueprint exists for how to do it successfully. The cruise industry connection deserves special attention because it's another area where Jamaica's strategy creates ripple effects. The Caribbean is the world's most popular cruise destination, with millions of passengers embarking on cruises from regional ports. Traditionally, many of these passengers have flown into Miami or Fort Lauderdale, stayed overnight, then boarded ships the next day. But as cruise lines diversify their embarkation ports throughout the Caribbean, and as Jamaica positions itself as an aviation hub, the logic of flying into Florida first becomes questionable. Why not fly directly to Jamaica, board your cruise there, or use Jamaica as your starting point for exploring multiple islands before or after a cruise? Cruise lines are taking notice. Several major cruise corporations have increased their Jamaica port calls and are exploring expanded operations based from Jamaica. This creates a virtuous cycle where better air connectivity drives more cruise business, which in turn justifies even more air service, which attracts more tourism overall. U.S. airlines that have benefited from cruise-related air travel are watching these patterns carefully, understanding that shifts in cruise operations can significantly impact their Caribbean route profitability. The hotel and resort industry factors into this equation as well. Jamaica has been experiencing a boom in hotel development, with major international chains and boutique properties investing heavily in the island. These aren't just random business decisions. Sophisticated hotel companies conduct extensive market research before committing capital, and the recent surge in Jamaican hotel investment suggests industry leaders believe something significant is happening with travel patterns. More hotel rooms mean capacity to handle more tourists, which supports the air connectivity expansion, which drives more tourism, which justifies more hotels. It's all interconnected. For U.S. airlines, the challenge isn't just about losing some market share. It's about the potential unraveling of a highly profitable business model. Caribbean routes have been cash cows that help subsidize less profitable domestic operations. They've been routes where airlines could deploy older aircraft and still fill seats at good prices. They've been reliable performers quarter after quarter, year after year. If Jamaica's strategy succeeds in fundamentally altering Caribbean travel patterns, it doesn't just mean some lost revenue. It could mean rethinking entire fleet strategies, hub operations, and network planning. The geopolitical dimension adds another layer of complexity. The United States has long had significant economic and political influence in the Caribbean, and aviation has been one mechanism through which that influence has been maintained. When most travelers to the region must route through U.S. airports, it creates economic ties and dependencies that extend beyond just airline revenue. A more independent Caribbean aviation system, anchored by Jamaica, represents a subtle but meaningful shift in regional dynamics. It's not overtly political, but economics and politics are never fully separate. Some industry analysts have begun calling this the Jamaica Gambit, and the name captures both the strategic nature of the plan and the risk involved. For Jamaica, this requires sustained investment during a period when the island, like most countries, faces economic pressures. It requires coordination between government, private sector, and international partners. It requires maintaining service quality and safety standards while rapidly expanding capacity. There are many ways this could stumble, and U.S. airlines are undoubtedly hoping for missteps that would slow or derail the transformation. But here's what makes this situation different from typical competitive threats that airlines face. This isn't another airline trying to undercut prices on specific routes. This is a destination reimagining its entire role in a regional ecosystem. Jamaica isn't just competing for passengers. It's proposing a fundamentally different way of thinking about Caribbean travel. And that's the kind of disruption that's hardest to counter, because it's not about matching prices or adding flights. It's about changing the conversation entirely. For travelers, the implications are almost entirely positive. More competition means better prices. Better connectivity means easier multi-destination trips. Improved infrastructure means more pleasant airport experiences. Enhanced regional service means access to smaller islands that currently receive limited flights. The transformation Jamaica is pursuing, if successful, makes Caribbean travel more accessible, more affordable, and more flexible. It turns the region from a collection of individual destinations, requiring complex logistics, into an integrated network where island hopping becomes as easy as visiting multiple cities in Europe. There are already early signs that this strategy is gaining traction. Passenger numbers through Jamaican airports have been showing strong growth, outpacing regional averages. New airline service announcements seem to include Jamaica with increasing frequency. Online travel forums and social media discussions among Caribbean enthusiasts increasingly reference Jamaica as an ideal base or starting point for regional exploration. These are the kinds of organic indicators that suggest real change is underway, not just marketing hype. U.S. airlines are not sitting idle while this unfolds. They've begun adjusting their strategies, adding some new direct service to bypass potential Jamaica connections, offering more competitive pricing on certain routes, and investing in their own Caribbean hub operations to maintain efficiency advantages. But these are largely defensive moves, reactions to a shifting landscape rather than bold offensive strategies. That's telling. When you're reacting rather than leading, you've already lost some control of the narrative. The next few years will be critical in determining whether Jamaica's vision fully materializes, or whether U.S. carriers can maintain their traditional dominance through scale, experience, and established customer relationships. The outcome will shape Caribbean travel for decades to come. Will your future vacation to the islands start with a connection through Miami, as it might have for your parents and grandparents? Or will it start with a direct flight to Jamaica, followed by easy hops to whatever combination of islands captures your imagination? What makes this story so compelling is that it's happening in real time. This isn't speculative future technology or theoretical business models. This is infrastructure being built right now, airline agreements being signed this year, travel patterns shifting with each passing quarter. You're witnessing the early stages of a major industry transformation. And unlike many business stories that only matter to industry insiders, this one will directly impact millions of travelers and their vacation experiences. The broader lesson here extends beyond just aviation or the Caribbean. It's about how strategic thinking, sustained investment, and clear vision can allow smaller players to disrupt established giants. Jamaica isn't a massive country. It doesn't have unlimited resources, but it identified an opportunity, developed a comprehensive strategy, and is executing with consistency and focus. That's a formula that works across industries and contexts. For U.S. airlines, the discomfort isn't just about Jamaica specifically. It's about what Jamaica represents, the possibility that other regions might follow similar playbooks. If a relatively small Caribbean nation can successfully challenge the established aviation order, what's to stop other regions from attempting similar transformations? The implications extend far beyond one island nation's airports. As travelers become more sophisticated and adventurous, as technology makes complex itineraries easier to book and manage, and as environmental consciousness increases, the demand for efficient, flexible, and sustainable travel options will only grow. Jamaica is positioning itself to meet that demand, and in doing so, is forcing the entire Caribbean aviation ecosystem to evolve. U.S. airlines must adapt or risk becoming increasingly irrelevant to a market they once dominated completely. So the next time you're planning a Caribbean getaway, pay attention to your routing options. Notice whether direct flights to Jamaica offer better connections than traditional routes through U.S. hubs. Watch for pricing differences that might reflect increasing competition. Consider whether a Jamaica-based itinerary might open up island combinations that would have been logistically challenging before. You're not just booking a vacation. You're participating in a major shift in how Caribbean travel works. The transformation is underway. The comfortable status quo is eroding. And while U.S. airlines still hold considerable advantages, the fact that they're genuinely concerned about a Caribbean island's airport strategy tells you everything you need to know about how seriously they're taking this challenge. Jamaica is reimagining Caribbean travel, and the ripple effects will be felt by every traveler heading to the region for years to come. The question isn't whether change is coming. The question is how quickly it will arrive, and whether you'll be among the first to benefit from the new era of Caribbean connectivity that's emerging before our eyes. This is more than an aviation story. It's about ambition, strategy, and the power of reimagining what's possible. Jamaica is betting that the future of Caribbean travel runs through its airports, and if they're right, your next island vacation might look very different from the ones you've taken before. The old playbook is being rewritten, and that's something worth paying attention to. Whether you're an aviation enthusiast, a frequent Caribbean traveler, or simply someone who appreciates a good David versus Goliath story playing out on the world stage.